Hey, good morning. This is Elle Martinez from Couple Money. I hope you are having a wonderful start to your weekend. It's 11:30 here in the East Coast and we're just about to get started on our live Q&A session about creating a budget for 2021. Creating a budget can be a challenge any year, but I think considering what's happened in 2020 and the fact that we have so many things up in the air for this upcoming year, it can be especially difficult to find a budget that's flexible enough to deal with what could happen and still give you that financial cushion and hopefully hit some of your financial goals that you have for the year. So if you are joining our chat, please just say hi and where you're coming from as I get set up on the notes. Just pulling up. Have some questions. Some people already have. Wanted to make sure that we get covered. And if you have any questions while we're going through the chat, please put it in there. I'm going to be glancing back and forth, and I want to make sure that I cover the topics that you're interested in. So first off, whether were doing relatively well financially in 2020 or that you were struggling and trying to tread water, I think we can agree that we were tested in 2020 with making adjustments to our budget. For those of us who were further ahead in our financial journey, it was a little less stressful on the number side, but we still had a lot to deal with work shifting. Also, if you have kids, taking care of remote learning while working from home, it's a lot to struggle with. And then, unfortunately, so many different industries, especially in the service industry, were hit with the pandemic and either saw a decrease in hours or unemployment. And so that uncertainty kind of carries on to this year with planning what needs to happen. And so I thought what might be helpful is going through a past experience that we had early in our marriage, which was figuring out how to budget when at that time my husband just had his first post graduation job and I had an internship. And if you know internships, I was very grateful for it to be paid, but it was one of those scenarios where I didn't know how long this was going to last. So the challenge for us was, how do we budget when one of our incomes was unknown or uncertain? And I think this applies today because it's better to have a plan and then you can level up than to kind of go with the flow and hopefully, it works out. So for us, this was a game changer because at that time it was out of necessity, but changed how we approached our finances, which was taking care of our essential expenses with one income. And depending where you are financially, this could be a dramatic change or it could be a small adjustment. But this shift in both the numbers and mindset made a huge difference with us hitting our financial goals and then also giving us flexibility for when things change for the better or if things went for the worse. So, last month's challenge, if you remember, was simply tracking your numbers. Coming out of 2020, a lot of us were already stressed out. I wanted to focus on a challenge that could be a significant help, but at the same time, not put a lot of pressure on you. And so, whether you used a spreadsheet, used an app, or even pen and paper, having those numbers in front of you is absolutely key because now you can see exactly where your money is going. When I talk about essential expenses, I want to be very specific. We're talking about your housing, necessary transportation, food, clothing, uh, things that if you lose your job, you immediately still need to continue paying because they are essential. And knowing that number is important. For example, when we were first married, to take care of the necessary expenses, we were about the $30,000 range. Now, remember, I was wrapping up college, husband just graduated college, so our needs were few, but having that framework of knowing that all of our essential expenses had to be covered with one income, gave us clarity with choices. For example, finding an apartment. We had an opportunity to get a very nice apartment, but it would have stretched our budget. But now knowing, okay, we have X amount per year that we need to pay for with this one income, we went with a cheaper apartment. And the cheaper apartment gave us that flexibility. Well, it turned out that the internship that I had actually lasted longer than that one semester. So then we could use that second income to speed up things with our financial goals. So the two of you, if you haven't had your money date or haven't talked about the numbers from last month, sit down and just sort out without judging which expenses are absolutely necessary and critical, your mortgage, your rent, necessary transportation for work, and which ones you would put as important or things of quality of life, but they aren't essential. And then what you can do is, as you're creating this budget, is making sure that your money is being allocated in a way that gives you flexibility, but still, should something happen, a drop of income or a change in income, you can take care of what you need to take care of. And that was one change that we made that at that time we didn't think it was a big deal, but it definitely helped out. Now, a goal that I think for 2021, if you hadn't been able to or haven't already hit, is having a financial cushion. I know typically with the personal finance space, we talk about either a starter budget or a starter emergency fund with the goal of 3 to 6 months of expenses. Depending on what industry, what your career prospects are, I would say one of the goals you should have is having absolutely, at the bare minimum, 3 months of essential expenses as your number one priority. Even putting off, paying off the debt a little bit faster, just having that financial security can be a big help. We're in tax season, so an opportunity to buff that up or build that up could be your tax refund. Depending on the jobs that you work at, it could be your annual review, and maybe you'll get a small bonus or some kind of bonus. You can put that towards savings. And then finally, if the next stimulus check happens, allocating that towards your financial cushion. You definitely want to have a safety net. That way, going forward, you have a lot less pressure. So, those are two key points with this year. I want to make sure that you already have in place, which is knowing your numbers and knowing what are your essential expenses. And then second, if you haven't had that built up, instead of saying a starter emergency fund is 1,000, I'm going to say the starter emergency with our current circumstances is 3 months of essential expenses. So then the next question I received, I'm just going to pull this up, was a struggle that a lot of couples have. Which one of you feels, and I've seen this in multiple different ways, that you can't agree with the budget, but instead of talking it out, you've noticed that the budget is broken. And in some cases, some of you have written about these secret expenses or these charges that you weren't aware of. So, not sure if you saw this recently, but there was a post, and I'll put this in the link in the chat, in Policy Genius, that they did a survey with couples and money. And with the pandemic, it's definitely increased uh, a form of financial infidelity. And if you're not familiar with the term, this is where you are in secret breaking your budget or going over the budget, not having the input of your spouse. And this can be not only devastating to your numbers or you have a harder time with the finances, but this breaks the trust in your relationship. And so a lot of couples are asking, like, how can we create a budget that we're both happy with? So, got the link in the chat, should show up in just a minute. But let's talk about that. How do you create a budget where you're both happy with? At the very basic level, a good budget that's sustainable hits three main goals. You take care of those essential expenses with your bills. You're able to build some financial security and down the line, some financial wealth. And then the third one is that you're able to enjoy now. And usually, what I see when couples conflict, it's those last two. I think everyone agrees you have to pay the bills, but there's a tension between how aggressive should we go with hitting those financial goals, like building the emergency fund, saving for a particular goal, investing for retirement, or any other goal that you have, versus enjoying now, which is improving your quality of life, choices about projects around the house, how quickly should that show up? Vacations, which I think is going to be a priority this year if everyone is able to get the vaccine in reasonable time. But you get the picture. There is a conflict that a lot of couples have. And if the two of you are looking for a general framework, one of the best budgets I've seen as a starting point with couples is the 50-20-30 budget. And how that works out is that 50% of your income or your budget goes towards those essential expenses. You have 20% going towards those financial goals. Again, if you don't have that financial cushion, you might temporarily put a pause on that till you get that cushion in place. And then 30% you set aside for discretionary income. You have family vacation that you're looking forward to this year because you've been cooped up at the house and you're just needing to get a break, or if you want to, visit your relatives you haven't been able to. Perhaps some of you, because of the pandemic, have started a side income and you're looking to grow that in 2021. That's something that you could put towards. But whatever your goals are, start with those. Start with three basic buckets. And those percentages are just guidelines. You can always tweak and adjust it based on your particular circumstances and timeline. But use that and talk about, what do we have to go in this one with the essential expenses? What is our biggest financial goal that we should have done by the end of this year? And then what would we like to do in 2021, considering circumstances, if we're able to travel more or able to do stuff outside of the house more. So when you can define those three goals and you have numbers behind that, it is much easier to move ahead. And practically speaking, one of the best things that you could do after you've agreed on a basic budget is to automate it. And automating your money is as simple as using your bank or credit union's bill pay feature. You can use transfers and payments. And what that does is it frees you up from the tedious parts of handling your finances. And instead, you can focus on the big picture, because that will give you long-term, more sustainable wins. So the last part and last question that we got here was, here we go. What's the best money app for couples? And this is a great question to ask, but you're probably not going to like my answer. And the answer is, it depends. I've seen some great apps and options out there, but the truth is, they're not a good fit for everyone. There is no one size fits all approach with finances, even with how you budget. And there's no one size fits all approach with what money app is best. But there are some great apps that I do want to talk about briefly. That way you can see if it's a good fit for you and you can try them out. Now, if you're a couple that is specifically trying to get into the habit of better communications, I want to talk about Zeta, Zeta, and also Honeyfi. These budget apps are specifically created for couples to make it easier to not just keep tabs on the accounts, but with each other. They have ways that you can send messages and communications about any transactions you have a question with. And nowadays, with so many couples having a mix of personal and joint accounts, you could set up a system where you share certain accounts and others are more personal. And when I say personal, for example, we have a lot of entrepreneurs in our community, and maybe their spouse doesn't care about seeing all the details on the transactions, but they do want to get a big picture view to make sure overall that their family finances are doing well. These are great options because these apps allow you to have complete control of on how you communicate. Now, if you're looking for a more general money app, or maybe one of you is the go to person when it comes to finances, I have three suggestions for you. If you're more of a visual person and you prefer to keep it simple, not have it complicated, and you only have a few accounts between you, Mint can be a great option. It's free. You could use that to track your banking accounts, credit cards, if you have that, any loans, and you can set up goals within that. So if you decide that you are going to be paying down some debt, you can keep tabs on that. And if you are trying to keep your spending in check, Mint does have a way for you to send notifications and alerts when it approaches a certain amount in your budget. The second choice I recommend is if you are a spreadsheet person, you absolutely love spreadsheets, or you have a very unique financial situation, Tiller Money can be a fantastic option because you could use Google Sheets or Microsoft Excel. You tie it in with Tiller, and it gives you the power to pull in your bank data into your spreadsheets so that you can keep tabs. It's completely customizable, but they also have a great community and they have a ton of templates in their library. So Teller Money might be the best fit for you if that's more your style. And then finally, if you're a couple that have many accounts between the two of you, including different investments besides just your 401k, your IRA, you might want to look at Personal Capital. This one is also a free app. This will allow you to connect all your accounts, has a great dashboard. And if you are interested, you can get financial advice on your investments to lower any unnecessary fees. So while I would love to say there is one solution for everybody, the truth is because we handle our finances different, we have our own different styles, there are different money apps that are going to fit your purpose. But if you ever have a question about a specific app, or if you want to share your situation and ask for advice on what tools might be best for you, you can always email me at l@couplemoney.com. I'd be happy to help. Thanks for joining me with this live stream. I really appreciate it. And take care, and I'll see you on the podcast. Bye.